So the astrology of the week of 11 October 2021 through 17 October 2021, it's a great week of astrology, some of the best astrology we've had in a long time, returning a sense of hope and optimism and buoyancy. I think this week will bring us a lot of good vibes and a lot of good energy. The benefics Jupiter and Venus are highly active in the sky in terms of the planets that they aspect. We get the Sun trining Jupiter, Venus sextiling Saturn, and then the Moon will be ruled by Jupiter 2 times this week. So let's get into the charts, let's get into the week. My name is S.J. Anderson, astrologer S.J. Anderson. Welcome to my channel. On this channel I discuss astrology and I talk about the astrology each and every week. I will have a video and so welcome here. In the videos what I do is I do 4 things. First, break down the aspects of the planets, the non-moon traditional planets as they aspect each other, as they change signs, as they station direct and retrograde. Then I will always look at the moon sign. That's the second thing I do. I like to examine how the moon moves through the sky. Third, I'll go in chronological order, looking at charts that I like, charts that I think are potent and interesting. And then fourth, we'll do a cartomancy reading, a tarot reading, to understand additional sets of symbols to give us information. And so yeah, welcome here. Welcome to this week's iteration of the weekly astrology. It's a great week. I mean, I was just preparing this over the last few days and thinking how much the tone of this week is supported by our benefic planets, Jupiter and Venus, at a time when, remember, Venus last week came into Sagittarius. Venus is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is really slow right now, about to station direct. Next Monday, not this Monday, Jupiter will station direct. And so there's this benefic hit or dose that's been injected into the collective in this recent turn. And this week is a great week to just ride some of that, to experience some of that, enjoy some of that. Mercury retrograde is now still active, but we're getting to those stages now. We're post the cazimi, the inferior conjunction between the Mercury and the Sun. And so we're settling into coming through the Mercury retrograde cycle. With these benefic doses this week, it's a time, I feel like, where we're revving up. It's a nice, restful, kind of still a transition time, but where we can enjoy some real good energy as we're revving up for this kind of quick climax to the end of the year. Jupiter will station direct, like I said, it's 18 October. Saturn will station direct this week. You'll have those 2 great planets now moving forward again, and we're accelerating into this final climax of Jupiter and Saturn's co-presence together that has been with us since December 2019. And we then have eclipse season. November and December we'll have these 2 eclipses, one in Taurus, a lunar eclipse in November, and then a solar eclipse in Sagittarius in December. And so we're kind of rushing headlong into this finish to the year. But this week to me just feels like that nice settled ease, like before a big game. I don't know if any of you have ever been athletes, but it's like before the game, you put your headphones on, you've got your jumper on or whatever, and you're just kind of settling into some good vibes before you know you got to go play. And that's what this week feels like to me. So that's the introduction. Let's jump into these aspects this week and check out what's going on. Like I mentioned, right out of the gate, so even less than 24 hours from where I sit now recording this, Saturn stations direct in that 7th degree of Aquarius, and that happens to kick off the week. Saturn's stations retrograde and direct are... All right, sorry, there was some construction outside, really loud construction, so I stopped the video, but I'm back. I think I was talking about Saturn station direct, and I think about Saturn is that it's staying in that same degree, that same part of the sky. It's been there for at least a week or 2. And so the issues around this Saturn station have already been activated or probably already very much in play, but we start the week here on 11 October, 4 a.m. here in Central Europe with that exact moment of the direct station. Saturn gets moving forward again. I think that could be uplifting for us, especially people that are intimately tied to Saturn right now, or that have a special relationship to Saturn. We get then 2 days later, so on Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. here in Central Europe, Venus perfects the sextile to Saturn, overcoming Saturn. from earlier in zodiacal order. Venus is able to give Saturn a lot of good energy. This will, I think, assist Saturn as it gets moving slowly again to get back into some faster speeds later in the month. And then you have Friday, 1:30 p.m. in Central Europe. The Sun in Libra will perfect that trine to Jupiter in Aquarius. Jupiter is still retrograde, but it's in the same degree that it will station direct in on Monday. So the Sun gets to touch some of that Jupiterian energy via perfecting a degree perfection. I was going to say there's a word that has escaped my mind, or the ray of Jupiter. So Jupiter's ray is being cast back to where the Sun is to sweeten up the Sun. That happens on Friday. And then on Sunday, finally, we get Mercury sextiling Venus, Mercury in Libra, Venus in Sagittarius. Remember, Venus rules the Mercury retrograde. And so this is a moment where Mercury is now going to make an appearance very early next week, but it gets this sweetness from Venus. And so as you can notice here, what's so cool about this week is that all of the benefic activity, Venus in the sky right now is ruled by Jupiter, Venus in Sagittarius, and they make that sextile. So Venus is received by Jupiter, its ruler. And that's a very nice aspect, an easy flow aspect between Venus, the planet of love, pleasure, touch, relationship, connection, and Jupiter, a planet of hope and beneficence and good tidings and higher level thought and kind of breakthroughs with worldview and mentality. But good things. Both these planets are hopeful planets, and they have this lovely sextile. Jupiter rules Venus, and then they're sending their arrays all week, Venus to Saturn, Jupiter to the Sun, Venus to Mercury. And the other thing is to notice all the planetary aspects that perfect this week. You have the sextile, the trine, and the sextile. Both of those aspects are of the nature of Venus, which is the sextile, and the trine is of the nature of Jupiter. So the aspects themselves are very Venusian and Jupiterian, while the planet Venus and the planet Jupiter are involved in those aspects. So it's very much a week kind of saturated with these hopeful vibes, and I'm really happy it's here. As an astrologer and doing these videos, I always try to bring up and highlight when the good energy comes around, and this is one of those weeks. Anyhow, this is where we are. These are the aspects. I'm going to now shift to the signs that the moon is going to transit through. That's the other thing I really like to look at. Let's do that now. The moon will be starting its week in Sagittarius and finishing its week in Pisces, the Jupiter rule signs. We love that. The moon is starting in the mutable signs and ending in the mutable signs, but this week it's Jupiter's turn. And to have the double, the book ending of the moon sign this week. And the thing here is that Jupiter again is stationing direct. That Pisces moon on the weekend is going to come right as Jupiter is getting ready to station. I think that activates the Jupiter station very bigly this weekend. The moon is waxing. This is the other feature of this week. We have a young growing moon, which is again an energy of hope and forward thinking, looking to the future. The same vibes that we get from Saturn, from Venus and Jupiter, what I was just speaking about, the Venusian and Jupiterian hopeful energy. Remember, hope is about the future. We have hope for things to change, for betterment to come into our lives. And so this waxing cycle of the moon is a part of that hopeful vibe. It continues the Sagittarius moon we're experiencing now this weekend as I record this. We get that same vibe continuing all week, and then it climaxes with this awesome Pisces moon on the weekend. And in the middle there, we get, this Saturn-ruled moon. And I've talked about these Saturn-ruled moons. It's always Capricorn then Aquarius, with the moon being ruled by Saturn over the course of 5 days, because it passes through 2 signs that are consecutively ruled by Saturn. But the thing about this Saturn is that, remember where Saturn is situated now. It's just stationed direct. It's co-present with benefic Jupiter, and Venus makes that overcoming sextile. So these particular lunar transits through Capricorn and Aquarius, I think, are a little bit softer. There's going to be some warmth and some buoyancy added to the normal kind of Saturnine sense of separation and coolness because of how Venus and Jupiter are configured to Saturn and to the moon. So it's a nice thing this week to get those configurations with the moon, and to have again, a really lovely week with that waxing symbolism of growth and forward thinking here to have such benefic activity and activation with the planets that will rule the moon this week. So that's how I'm looking at the moon. You'll see the Pisces moon is the one I'm really hyped up about. That's what I'll be talking about as the transit of the week later. But let's shift now. Let's go to these chronological charts in chronological order. First chart I want to look at, Monday, 4 a.m., 4:17 a.m. here in Central Europe. Saturn stations direct. It's been since late May when Saturn stationed retrograde, and it's been moving backward. Symbolically, we think of this as delays or blocks or pauses that can come during any kind of retrograde cycle. I think this Saturn and this Jupiter retrograde are really interesting because remember, they're co-president, so they're timed around the same period when they will station retrograde and direct, because Saturn and Jupiter station when they're in a trine relationship to the Sun, just based on the astronomy of it. So they always station in retrograde near the same period of the year when they are co-present or in the same sign or close to each other. And so we see that again. We have Saturn stationing this Monday, and then a week later Jupiter will station. But you can think about just your year. You can think about your just what's happened to you in 2021. Go back to May. How was that? What was your life like? January, February, March, April, May, and the kind of bursts into this Aquarian moment we've had. What were the new things that you did, or the new ways you kind of were leaning into life, or the new reality that we're in, or the heavy changes we're dealing with collectively? How would you adapt to that in those first months of the year? And those actually coincided with Jupiter moving out of Aquarius and into Pisces in May, Saturn stationed there in May. So you have, that was another big thing that's matching with this timing. We had the Saturn-Jupiter co-present, Saturn stations retrograde in May, Jupiter goes into Pisces. I think it was a little bit before the Saturn station. But now we've kind of returned here to some of the themes, I think, of January, February, March, April, May of this year. So think about what that was like and what you're doing now as a kind of echo or a return to some of those energies that were prominent for you. I think now you'll have some loosening up and some ability to move ahead with this station and then with Jupiter station next week. I just check out here with the rulers of this station. It's always good to check in with a planet really at any time, what planets are ruling it. But we see here Saturn strong in its own domicile in Aquarius. I've spoken so much about the Aquarian moment and what that can mean, so I'm not going to talk too much about that here. But it's auspicious to be in your own sign. You get a lot of support there. So Saturn is going to activate probably more directly that support now that it is stationing and moving direct. And its face ruler, so that's not one I look at very much, but I'm going to look at the term ruler here is Mercury. So it's in Mercury's term. It's snuck back into Mercury's term. It was in Venus's term for so long. Now Mercury's the ruler, and look where Mercury is. It's that trine, that air trine. So we're still in this phase of our reality, the quality of the time we're in. Again, I've talked all about this because it's been so active during Libra season and with this Mercury retrograde in Libra. But the triplicity rulers of air signs, Saturn and Mercury, are in a trine relationship in the sky right now. And there's some support here for our air element activities and activations and air element significations. Thought, idea, technology, even the medicalization, of reality. The kind of, I'm talking on Zoom and this like YouTube video technology. I know it's not new, but our reality got more saturated with it. The growth of these online platforms surged in 2020 and 2021. This is the moment we're in, and so these themes are still activated. You might think about your online life, retrogrades, with Mercury being retrograde still and Saturn finishing as a retrograde. Maybe how are you retooling how you face the world or how you engage with the world vis-a-vis these technologies, the communication side of air. I know for me, I'm considering, I'm pruning some of my chat apps. There's so many chat apps and I just joined a bunch of them. And I think I'm deciding to cut back on a lot of those and just have one or two channels where I can communicate, because it was too overwhelming. I would wake up and have to go to 4 or 5 different apps, and that was kind of something in the recent weeks that I've been considering while this air trine of Mercury and Saturn has been active. Is just how I can maybe more effectively and with more structure and boundaries and borders around the communication, just for my own sanity. I think I will be able to communicate better. So these are the kind of themes, though, that are emerging here. This Saturn direct station ruled by Mercury trining Saturn from Libra, where Saturn is an exaltation ruler. So this whole air sign vibe, it's just still in play. And it's worth thinking. It's an important part of life, isn't it? Ideas and how we talk about things and what we share with people and how we connect through language and through ideas. So it's a big theme here. I think you'll access that in your own way. The one other thing I meant put here is the Aquarius 7. That's the degree where Jupiter will station direct. I like to use the Sabian symbols. I know this is not a traditional astrological technique. It's a psychic who created images, short phrases or images and assigned those images to all 360 degrees of the zodiac. And so I like them. I'm kind of new agey. I don't know I might not seem that way because of the traditional astrology that I practice, but I'm very much into kind of the, modern American new age. Has been a big influence on my life. I mean, I grew up in it. I grew up around it. I've read a lot of self-help books. I've done a lot of spiritual practices as they came to the West from the East in the 60s and 70s, and then were established here. The Vipassana training that I've done, the yoga training. And so I'm very much into kind of the new age is not a pejorative for me. I like that term, actually. I know it gets a bad rap, but the kind of new spiritual movements that emerged during my lifetime, I feel like it's like staying on the cutting edge of a field. But this, to me, is part of that astrologically. This was developed in the first part of the 20th century when there was a lot of spiritualism around, when astrology was being revived. This technique of the Sabian symbols. So I use them. So anyhow, not to talk too much more about that, let's go into the symbol. I bring them in often when there's a direct station or a retrograde station. I like to see that Sabian symbol because it highlights a single degree in the sky with the planet stopped there over a period of days or weeks. And so this one with Aquarius 7, a child born of an eggshell. And Mark Edmund Jones here writes about this is a symbol of the infinite regression in all personal reality. And it says here the illimitable potentialities to be found in each immediate moment of self-realization. So I like this for Saturn and for the Aquarius vibe that we're in, and for how dominant Saturn has been in the sky since 2017 December, but really since the climaxes in 2020 and then 2021 with the Jupiter and Saturn meeting in Aquarius in late 2020 and then traveling together in Aquarius all throughout 2021, and then that's where they are now. And all the shifts that we've seen in the reality, we're talking about illimitable potentialities. I feel like the technology that we have access to now is something like that. I mean, I know there's limits, but it feels kind of unlimited in a way with just what you can do with a phone. I saw a tweet earlier, someone was saying, you just get a smartphone and a connection and people, there's all kinds of business activity you can do. It's huge, particularly for people in places that are maybe haven't had phones. If you get a phone, you have that Library of Alexandria on your fingertips. And then this idea of being born out of an egg, I was thinking about here the cosmic egg, this idea that we're sort of born out of this cosmic egg and then the Big Bang, and then we emerge into this sort of cosmic soup of this strange, crazy reality that we're in. But there's something cosmic with Saturn always, because it's that planet that's the closest to the gods, it's that seventh sphere. And Saturn, from a mundane perspective, when it stations retrograde and direct, can really bring out and highlight strongly changes in the reality. And I think that this moment, this week is something like that. So look for news that may shift the story or the theme. But yeah, so what are you birthing is really what I want to go back to and ask you here. And it relates to that query that I mentioned earlier, the first 5 months of this year, and then now October, November, December. What has been birthed with your Aquarian moment of 2021? This might be a time to feel into that symbolically with a direct station, Jupiter's direct station next week, but this Sabian symbol of being birthed, a child out of an eggshell. So, okay, let's move. That's my Saturn direct. Some thoughts on Saturn direct from me. Let's move here. Next chart I want to look at, 13 October, Wednesday, 9:30 p.m., Central Europe. Venus perfects that overcoming sextile to Saturn, and it relates actually to what I was just saying. and the theme of this particular talk, because Saturn in Aquarius is a rough vibe. I mean, let's be real. When Jupiter left into Pisces, there was some edge that happened because people were saying, well, now Saturn's alone. It doesn't have the benefit of Jupiter. And Aquarian energy and Saturnine energy, I mean, it's separation and heavy-handed kind of enforcement of rules and structures, and the sense of being isolated from comfort. These are all Saturn themes. Prisons, poverty. This is Saturn. And I mean, you saw Saturn in Aquarius in the 1930s. The Great Depression hits heavy all over the world. These are themes that Saturn can bring. But to have it this week during this station, to have such benefic envelopment of Saturn, we're really lucky, because we're not getting this hard-hitting Saturn right now. We're getting this softer Saturn with its co-presence with Jupiter powerful, about to station direct, and then this Venus sextile that perfects here midweek, and it's applying all the way up till this moment on Wednesday. So I think we soften here, and maybe we can try to understand the pleasure or joy or beauty in the kind of structure that we have in our lives, or the intense rules that are that we're under. Maybe there's a beauty or a sweetness into that. I think about just being a human being alive, where we are in history. It's like, wow, I'm here. I'm in 2021. I live where I live. I'm here in the world, communicating with all the people that I get to communicate with. I love life here. It's a special moment, and you're alive here as a sentient human being in this special moment. It's kind of a profundity that comes with this Saturnine heavy-handedness as it's changing our world. There's beauty in that, I think. And with Sagittarius and Venus, this is an expansive energy. It's one of exploration and getting out in the world. Sagittarius is a so-called masculine sign or day-sex sign. Aquarius is the same. So we're kind of looking out here, and I think it's good to consider, who are you connecting with? Who can you talk to about this wonderful world we're in? I've got all kinds of friends from all over the world as an astrologer, and I got DMs today. Someone sent me this awesome YouTube video lecturing about sacred geometry. I mean, it's just special. It's just a special time, I feel like, to have access to wisdom and to have friends. That's the Venus, that's the Sagittarius that can help with that. So look for that this coming week. This is some of the good edge. Like I was saying earlier, this is a powerful special week. This is a real example of that. This perfecting aspect here on Wednesday between Venus and Sagittarius and Jupiter in and Saturn in Aquarius. And yeah, there heats up the seriousness of the moment. Benefics are warm and hot, and they give a heating energy, heating vibe. It's like it's when it's cold, you want that extra blanket. We have that this week with the two benefics relating to Saturn. And then I have here another metaphor or analogy I like: whistling in the dark. When we're confined, Saturn and Aquarius, the imagination of future realities can sometimes be all we need to get through a difficult time. I know there's been times in my life where I've been like working jobs that are challenging, or just like, oh, is this going to be my reality forever? Please, please. And I can just envision, okay, this is what I want, this is what I love, this is what I see, where I see myself going. Those kind of imagination deployed with positive vision, that is what I think is very useful here with this direct station of Saturn and Jupiter and Venus's really lovely configuration with Saturn in this context. Maybe it's not 2021, maybe it's 2022, 2023, 2024, and that your imagination now in these kind of profound moments and what you've learned in 2021 is getting you ready to project into those powerful realities that we can create with our mind and heart. So that's a cool thing that I love about this week, and particularly maybe this day, with this overcoming Venus earlier in zodiacal order, making that overcoming sextile, really helping Saturn as it gets going, as it's moving direct now. Okay, next chart. This is the 15th of October, Friday, 1:46 p.m. in Central Europe. The Sun in Libra, challenged in Libra, right? The Sun in its sign of fall. Instead of the fire of Aries and of the fire of the selfhood and the inner light as a kind of a modus operandi or a leading sort of mechanism of how we engage reality, instead of that, we have to say, all right, it's Venus, it's pleasure, it's slowing down, it's appreciating, it's considering other people. The self is not the prime central component right now with the Sun's being in Libra, fallen. Symbolically, we have to give over to the others. And that can be tough for some folks. The opportunity in it is that we get to learn about others, we get to feel the pleasure that others can give. But we might not be the center of attention. That's a little bit of Sun in Libra. But we've got now this trine to Jupiter in that 23rd degree of the respective signs. And I just think it's an additional time this week. I mean, the sun is so fundamental to the reality. The sun, we had a Libra ingress, and now we're going to be moving into Scorpio season. The sun gets really strong again in Sagittarius. That will come in November, late November. But the sun it can lean into this support with Venus and Jupiter as well right now. It's ruled by Venus because Venus rules Libra. And Venus is now in Sagittarius, sextiling Jupiter and then trining the sun. There's this kind of, sextile, two sextiles and a trine. There's a name for that. But I think some astrologers on Twitter, we were like brainstorming the name for that. I can't remember it, a mini trine or a double sextile or something like this. But you get that now. And so the sun gets to also lean into this vibe. I mean, look at this chart. This is on Friday. You've got an Aquarius moon. You'll have 6 of the 7 again in air signs, 6 of the 7 traditional planets. All planets are either in a trine or sextile relationship or conjunction relationship. Those are the most supportive aspects we have. So this is supportive energy. It's part of this sweetening out from the Mercury's retrograde station and then Mercury's Cazimi moment, and now we're finishing Mercury retrograde, and we get this very sweet geometric elegance in the sky. Jupiter stations direct next Monday. Saturn will have station direct the Monday before this. So I love how easygoing and how much of a flow there is in this astrology, and the sun gets to access this. It very much helps the sun in its fallen state to have that Jupiter trine. You only get per year what you get two trines, 2 Jupiter Sun trines per year, and this is one of them. And I think we can have some uplift here for any number of things. So the next thing I have here is just idea sets of pleasure and utility for others. It's what I was saying before. With the Jupiter trine, I mean, this may sweeten your consciousness, his ability to be in communal spaces. And you might look to give here. You might look to give and come down from that focus. Be the Jupiter for others with this moment. You can be that Jupiter, the stable Aquarian Jupiter. That's the Saturn with Jupiter sitting and stabilizing. That is a place where people can come feed from your trough, right? And it can be a good motive in our lives. How can I serve? How may I serve thee, God and others? That's a great reality frame in my view. I think this is a perfect time for that here on Friday as we get into the weekend. And also in this chart, I'll just say the moon activates. The moment this trine perfects, the moon is applying to Jupiter within a degree. So this could even, I think this weekend will be really good if you allow it and if you can hopefully access it with your circumstances. This could be a really powerfully optimistic and hopeful weekend, and a climax of good stuff with this whole Aquarian turn of 2021. This is like a moment where we're saying, Jupiter, you're going to station direct soon. The 2 luminaries are seeding and feeding and mixing with Jupiter. So it's very, very cool energy. This particular trine as it perfects, and then we go finally, the final chart I want to look at, 16 October. This is Saturday, so the next day after that chart we just were looking at. This is Saturday. I've just pulled up here 9:40 p.m. because where I am, I'm going to get the moon with the midheaven. But look, you'll have all I'm going to say about this chart, first of all, it's a weakened Pisces moon and it's waxing. Already we have a waxing moon, a hopeful moon, a moon of growth. Pisces, a sign of growth, a sign of hope and growth. Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces. Now it's a verse, Jupiter doesn't see Pisces. But in this particular chart, the moon is applying to a square with Venus and Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter. And so vis-a-vis the domicile tree, you have this kind of shared connection between Venus and the moon as they both are ruled by Jupiter. I just love this chart. Of all the charts this week, this is my transit of the week. This is the great optimistic and excitement moon. The excitement being embedded into our lives. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier, just being grateful to be alive. It's like, wow, I have hands, I've got these clothes, and there's a certain sense of awe every moment of every day and almost everything. And that to me is the real profundity of Jupiter's sort of high level awareness, Jupiter's sort of high level reality shifts and frames, this kind of profound sense of being in the human incarnation, the precious human birth, as they say in the Buddhist tradition. And this to me feels like a moon that can, give us that, an injection of that. I also have here, under the dirt is the jewel, right? You sometimes go into the ocean, you find the oyster, you break it open, you clean it, then you get the pearl. Or, and again, to go back to the Buddhist tradition, you have the idea of the muddy water, and then you have that lotus that emerges. I think it's the jewel of the lotus that comes from the dirt and the grime around it. This is how I think of Pisces a lot. And I've been thinking of Pisces all year like this because of the moments when Jupiter was in Pisces, those 3 months earlier this year. There was a sense of grittiness and dirt, I think, that emerged almost immediately. It was like, dang, this is dirty, but it was a subtle power of how Jupiter could cleanse that dirt. And that is the jewel that can emerge from the dirt. That's the Jupiter in Pisces. And you might find that with this, you're confronted with challenge, but as an invitation to cleanse and heal. The reason why a shower feels so good is that we get fresh, we clean the grime, we get the soaps, and we feel fresh. That's post-shower. But the shower itself is part of that Jupiter in Pisces, the cleaning. So I think we can acknowledge this kind of profundity of each moment, the jewel that we have in our hearts, this precious human incarnation. This is the weekend for that. I'm really pumped. And we have a Sagittarius moon as I'm recording this, and we get this kind of second dose of the Jupiter-ruled moon while it's waxing, while Jupiter is dead station there, about to move direct. Really cool time for 2021. And again, I'll say it's cool because we have Saturn, Mars, they're going to square off at the end of October for 6 weeks. We have eclipse season, end of November and December. So there will be some kind of rougher intensities coming. This week is a time to just chill and enjoy a kind of hopeful, expansive moment. So let's get some tarot cards. Let's see what the tarot is going to say and what symbols the tarot may add to this kind of very hopeful, optimistic reading and what I see as hopeful, optimistic astrology. Let's get that first card. All right, the first card is, and let me get set up here. Let me just move some stuff around. Give me a second. This would be, boom, the first card is the Six of Diamonds. What a card. The reward card. The moon, the decan of the moon, that middle decan of Taurus, where the moon is exalted. That's this card. The sixes in the cartomancy tarot systems are always powerful cards of elegance because of the double triangles, right? And you have that symbol of the star, the double triangled polygons or shapes. My terminology is probably off there, but there's a real elegance with trines and sextiles. This is the six-sided star, and in this system, it's Earth. So we're looking at the diamonds in this deck, but Earth, the Earth element, body, money, physicality, the abundance around us, the pleasures of the flesh. We might even say, I know it has a kind of negative connotation, but the real pleasure of the flesh. I mean, I don't even mean that in a kind of raunchy way. I mean it in literally like the shower is a perfect analogy. That's the moon. And here, the reward of the cleanse, right? This is in the first position. I'm wondering about, just the gratitude you may have. That when I see this card, I think about gratitude, particularly in this position. How abundant has your year been? If it's been up, there's been some ups and downs, maybe recall in your mind that the good things. It's always good to do a gratitude list. There's always just gratitude. I've got a chair I'm sitting on. Gratitude can be as basic sometimes, but yet super profound for even just the simplest of things. So I'm thinking gratitude list here. And I think we're talking about benefics. We've got the moon, we've got in Taurus, that's the Venus energy. This is kicking us into this whole contemplation of Venus moving into Sagittarius. How was that for you last week? And then setting us up for this heavy Venus-Jupiter week with the moon in Sag and then the moon in Pisces. So that's my brief read with this card. Let's get the God deck card, the second card. This is the Major Arcana and the Knights. And this deck is, I just like pulling the God deck. It comes from, some of you might not have heard me talk about this, but if the tarot has 78 cards, if you remove 26, you are left with 52, the playing cards. And so Alejandro Jodorowsky, big influence of my tarot practice and how I think about tarot. In his book, he talks about you remove God from the tarot and you're left with the gambling cards. So it's kind of, that's, gambling in this context with some negative, ungodly connotations. So that's where you get God deck from. And I've always enjoyed reading with the 22 and then with the Knight. So this card is going to be the 20. I think we're here dealing with the Aeon. Let me just grab this up here. This is the Sun. Perfect. This is the Sun. Wonderful. The Sun is 19 in the tarot numbering system, but how I use my random number generator, the numbers are a little bit different because you start with 0, the Fool. So that's 1 in this system. 1 is the Magician, 2 in the random number generator system. So, okay, to come back here, we've got the Sun. So amazing to see that Sun, because I was just talking about the solar aspect of our lives right now as it's in Libra, and then it trines Jupiter. And so the Sun is the brightness. It's the center of life. I mean, the Sun rises and gives us the rays, so that, what is it, with the science, it's the green powders that you can drink, the green drinks that they get. I can't think, my brain's really slow right now. I should have maybe done this earlier when I had a faster brain. It's just kind of the end of my week. I'm a little bit run down, but the green drinks there's a process when the Sun hits like the grass and these green plants that it turns into these really nutritious chemicals that we can drink. Chlorophyll, it's chlorophyll, I think. But the point here is how the Sun feeds. The Sun feeds the whole reality that we're in. It feeds our skin, and then we make vitamin D, which is essential to fighting illness. That might be something to think about here as we descend into cooler months in the Northern Hemisphere. Get your vitamin D. Take your vitamin D to protect yourself. But I love this card actually for the context of the reading. The Sun, there's 2 people. Look, it's like siblings, 2 young siblings here, and it goes back to what I was just saying about the Sun being in Libra with Jupiter. It's giving. What is life if we're alone? There's no life. There's no life if I just sit here alone. It's not a life. We've got to think about how we're here for others to help other people. And that's what this card ultimately says. It looks like they're assisting each other. Maybe one is like limping like a twisted ankle and he's getting a little support to walk. This is the kind of Jupiterian solar energetic that we can access this week. So I'm gonna leave it there. I think that's a perfect card to end, and that's a perfect little metaphor. That's the weekly astrology. That is the weekly tarot. This is S.J. Anderson. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to my channel. You can support me by liking and subscribing the video. You can always go to my website, sjanderson144.com, and schedule an astrology reading, a tarot reading, or you can support my Patreon. Helps keep the videos going. Have an awesome day. Talk soon.